welcome back to the live stream, SOLIDWORKS Live at 3D Experience World 2020. I'm your host, Jeremy Rigneris, and I'm joined here with Charles Adler, co-founder of Kickstarter.
Hey.
Charles, welcome.
How's it going?
You just came off a general session at 3D Experience World 2020. I think most people watching probably know what Kickstarter is and what an audience to speak in front of, a bunch of innovators and creators. So what's it like to you to have the opportunity to speak in front of 5,000 people with ideas in their heads?
I would say even more than that. It is like being in a big living room, if that makes any sense. It doesn't feel at all like that, but kind of feels like that. Would you say like, so I
feel at home a little bit?
Yeah, just like I'm around creative people, right?
Yeah, so what? You know, for the folks who, I don't know that there's anybody who doesn't know what Kickstarter is, but you guys really create a platform that enables people, maybe without the means of a large organization, to help them come up with an idea and bring that to market, really empower them to be creators, right?
Yeah.
You know, so as an example, before you got up here, I thought, why don't I log on to my Kickstarter account? And I just realized I've spent an absurd amount of money over the years on here.
Thank you and sorry at the same time, I guess. Yeah.
Everything from a television show. I'm into tabletop gaming, so I have a lot of stuff with that. That's a big category on there. Ceramic dinner plates that are shaped as the 50 United States. That was one of the first projects I did back in 2012, 2013 it looks like. So yeah, I mean, it's a really great platform to connect both people with ideas with the people who want to consume their ideas. Explain a little bit about what kickstarted the Kickstarter idea.
I mean, so there's a number of facets to it. The most documented one, I guess I would say, or the sort of root of the company starts with Perry. So there's three of us who started the company. Perry Chen was what I would say is the sort of keystone in the company. And he was living in New Orleans at the time. This is like around 2000, 2001. And he wanted to throw what is called a rave. Or a concert, right?
Yeah.
And he went through the sort of journey of trying to pull that together and basically freaked out at the end, thinking about how much would this cost him and the risk that was associated with putting the event on and hoping that anybody would show up, right? He didn't care about making money to do the thing. He just wanted to share a particular style of music with the community in New Orleans. And long and the short of it is he was just frustrated by the fact that that event couldn't happen. And so to this day, it's never happened. And I think what ultimately when Perry and I met, when Perry met Yancey, about a year prior to my coming on board, what we shared is sort of similar experiences in either our own attempt to bring something to life, that we knew that there were friends of ours that would support us, that friends would want to buy the thing, whatever it was, but there was no mechanism to catalyze that. And even more so, no mechanism to connect to people that you don't even know, right? Like we're now living in a world more than any other moment where ideas can travel at light speed. Like ideas always travel, like they're provocative, and we wanted to kind of double down on that. So, yeah.
I mean, it's a catalyst. Not only, you know, I'm sitting here while you're talking, thinking, you know, it's not just a catalyst to enable people to bring an idea. It enables them to start almost a whole new business for a lot of these people and how they look at it. One of the things I find really interesting about Kickstarter is anybody who wants to get funding really have to show a business plan to their potential investors is the way to look at them. And it gives them an opportunity to really hold themselves accountable. You were talking on stage this morning about somebody who they wanted to complete, it was a doodle project, I think you were calling it, a drawing
for dollars.
Drawing for dollars. And one of the things that your platform enabled them to do is it put a sense of accountability on their 100%. Shoulders to actually complete their projects and get them done.
There's like a buddy system in there. And sometimes it's 3 people. Sometimes it's thousands of people, right?
Yeah.
There was something I would want to pick at, which maybe speaks about, you know, sort of the beginnings of Kickstarter to what it is now. Is sort of what I would say is organic growth, which is very organic. You mentioned your fascination with board games, right? So gaming is a category. Video games, board games we all played, and we recognized that the plight of a creative is. Like it's pervasive in those categories as well, but we just didn't have like a sensibility of that, right? We didn't have friends that were making board games or video games, I guess. And And so when we launched, that wasn't even on our minds. And then we started seeing some blogs talking about using Kickstarter for their games, and so this debate as to whether they should or shouldn't. And I mean, board games is literally one of our largest categories right now. I mean,
the
it's
first
incredible.
Zombicide, I think, raised over $1 million for a board game, and
Yeah.
it was like, wow, this is really a platform, and it's really created a renaissance in that industry.
Yeah.
You can go to your local store, and there's
Totally.
tons of new products.
There
out
was
there,
as a big kid, so I grew up. One of the things I left off, I should probably add it in. I grew up reading comic books,
Yeah.
right? And it was like, I was a Marvel guy, but there's Marvel and DC, right?
Yep.
The pervasive battle. And at some point, somebody had equated Kickstarter as a publisher of comic books, that's another like massive category, as second to one of those two. So somewhere we're sandwiched between these like iconic brands,
Yeah.
Marvel and DC, as a publisher of comic books, which made your heart kind of like that's kind of dope. Like, that's kind of
Yeah.
dope. Like, we don't publish anything, but cool,
So let me ask you really quick, as we think about being at 3D Experience World 2020. How familiar are you
Yeah.
with like what Dassault Systems does with enabling our entrepreneurs and startups, kind of help them get off the ground? Are you familiar with any of the programs we're doing?
I'll say a little bit, but assume me naive.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the cool things, we're going to have the team on here tomorrow actually talking about SolidWorks for Entrepreneurs. It's a program where we enable people with ideas with our suite of tools available to them at no cost. It helps them get up off the ground. So sometimes an idea is as simple as a napkin sketch and using a platform like yours. Sometimes they need to manufacture a product.
Yeah.
And that's where SolidWorks for Entrepreneurs is a great tool to help enable them on the other side of the Kickstarter.
Super
piece
cool.
there,
What
too.
I love about that is I think, and I talked about this a little bit, but we always tend to focus on like the big things, big accomplishments that come out of whatever it is, that sausage factory that we make,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's like SolidWorks or Dassault as a whole, or Kickstarter, or the ecosystem of like whatever on the internet. And I think the thing that fascinates me most is this like fringe, everything that's super early,
Yeah.
and this community of folks that I would argue, maybe from an entrepreneurial narrative, but I think the same story applies into the arts 100%, is this invisible race that you're in, right?
Yeah.
And race is probably the wrong word, but it is definitely how it feels, which is you're racing to launch the thing before somebody else launches and takes that market, whatever it may be. And I think shining a light in those communities and giving a helping hand in those communities. I mean, that was literally the script for Kickstarter, and it's
Right.
the script for this new thing, Lost Arts, that I'm working on, which is how do you just go earlier and earlier into the creative mind and get to that idea stage, right? And just help them inch a little bit closer to that, like getting in that hype curve. And I think that's just really cool, really rewarding, and really fascinating. So it's cool to hear what you guys are doing as well in that vein.
Cool. Well, Charles, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come here. I
Yeah.
know you've got a busy day planned ahead of you.
Yeah.
You want to tell anything to the viewers at home? You were talking about Lost Arts. It's a secret new project you have coming out with.
Yeah, I guess.
Can they learn more? Is there a place where folks can go?
There's a
and, like,
very vague website, as one should have, lostarts.co. But I think maybe my own little takeaway that I learned in that experience. So I was basically building, what would be called a makerspace, and wanting to effectively scale that out. Right, we've seen some examples of that working, not working. Right, and so that means opportunity. Right, and so I built this sequence of spaces to kind of test the culture. Is this culturally needed in the way that I'm thinking about it? And this is sort of the designer, entrepreneur in me, like putting something out there and observing. And then I built a second one to kind of test the economics of it. How would this scale? How does this work? Would anybody pay to be here? And it was all in the spirit of refining that product. But I think it's important not to get overtly obsessed with the object that you're making, and kind of looking at the periphery of the thing that you're making. And don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm not, what Lost Arts is becoming is a digital platform, but not something to run makerspaces. It's more
Okay.
abstract than that, effectively enabling creators to connect with one another, to support each other through those kind of early difficult times when you're taking an idea and trying to transact the idea.
Process, and how does that turn in?
And get through the production process, manufacturing, supply chain, and so forth. So there's like a wealth of information that's just not well documented, that's in people's imaginations or minds, that needs to get access. So kind of playing in that kind of open field of space. So,
we'll be keeping our eyes on it as time goes on.
Cool.
Charles, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us here at SolidWorks Live at 3D Experience World 2020.
Awesome.
And for those of you at home, we're going to be visiting the shop floor where you're going to be able to see an entire product go from front office to through design to manufactured part. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.